Hello, debt warriors, and welcome back to another episode of Millennial Debt Domination. I'm your host, Katie O'Shea. Have you ever gone on a shopping spree after a bad or even a good day? That's emotional spending, using shopping as a way to cope with feelings like sadness, boredom, anxiety, loneliness, or happiness. While it might offer temporary relief, emotional spending often leads to regret, guilt, and deeper financial stress. It's not about a necessity. It's about numbing emotions with a quick dopamine hit. And over time, this coping mechanism can become deeply ingrained and an expensive habit. Today, we're diving into the psychology behind emotional spending, why we do it, how it impacts our finances and mental health, and most importantly, how to break the cycle. Joining me is Kim Cole, Navicore's Community Engagement Manager. Kim and I will discuss why Millennials and Gen Z are especially vulnerable to emotional spending, the rise of retail therapy, the connection between emotional spending and mental health, and much more. Let's get into my conversation with Kim. Hi, Kim. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited. Today we're going to be talking about emotional spending and how we can stop. So to get started, let's discuss what exactly is emotional spending and how does it show up in our day-to-day lives?
So emotional spending, what it really kind of consists of is when you're spending money in response to some kind of emotional trigger. It's when you maybe had a bad day at work and you find yourself going, you know what, I'm going to go shopping. It's kind of the response to a trigger. Not maybe always the best, but in our mind at that time, it is rational.
And I think it's definitely easier for it to show up in our day-to-day lives nowadays, especially with the online shopping aspect of it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So much easier to online or to emotional spend nowadays.
Yes, I agree. I agree.
Why are millennials and Gen Z particularly vulnerable to emotional spending habits?
I think that with the kind of the younger generations, one of the things that they face that while I mean my generation faces as well, but not to the extent, is the constant barrage of online social media. Everything is blasting at you at one time. And I think that it almost reinforces that kind of behavior. If you're constantly getting hit with messages and images and shopping and all of that, it becomes very, very easy. Too easy, I think. And that's one of the reasons why I think that Gen Z and millennials are particularly vulnerable. I think that it is definitely it's too easy, and it's not only easy, but it's a constant message.
And do you think maybe the aspect of like the fear of missing out also plays into that emotional spending? Like if you see someone buy something new and fancy on Instagram, you're like, do I need that? Or kind of a trigger?
Oh, 100%. I mean, even my generation, we feel the same way. If it's it's for us, it was keeping up with the Joneses. For the other generations, it is the FOMO. But yeah, definitely. And I think, one of the things that has to be looked at as well is that with Gen Z and millennials, experiences have become so important, whereas other generations may not feel that pull. So for me, it might be going to a department store and buying a dress. For a generation that's interested in an experience, now you're talking more money. You're talking about possibly bringing in friends that are going to support this, making it a little bit different, than traditional, what we would call retail therapy.
And do you think maybe even since COVID, there's been an uptick in this because people are like, I don't want to miss out?
I agree. There is definitely a you only live once kind of philosophy out there. And I think that with the current state of, just what's going on in the world, the economy, all of these things, these are tremendous pressures that we may not look at that could be pushing us to these purchases. It is you only live once, but it's also, kind of using shopping and things like that as a crutch after you watch the news for a few hours.
So yeah, let's go into that. So how do emotions like stress, boredom, sadness, or even happiness trigger spending?
Well, I think it's honestly, it's because it's just so easy. I think that if I'm excited for something, I want to buy something because I deserve it. If I'm sad about something, I'll go shopping because it'll make me feel better. Shopping, when you start to get into shopping and emotional spending, it is not a far leap to kind of get into a compulsive spending. And, we've got to watch because once those endorphins are kind of released in the dopamine and all those things that make us feel better, it really becomes a crutch for how to cope. They become coping mechanisms. Shopping is a coping mechanism, and it's a very expensive coping mechanism.
And maybe a lot of people don't even realize they're emotionally spending. So how, like, are there any red flags that someone may not be aware of that they're emotionally spending without even realizing it? How can someone tell if we're doing that?
So, one of the things that I recommend is if you're all of a sudden feeling this draw to shop, do an inventory. Do kind of an inventory in your brain. Like, okay, what's going on that I want to go there? Why do I need to go to this store? Why do I need, and that's really, I think, the basis. Do I need to go shopping? And do I need to go out and buy the latest phone because all of a sudden I feel like it's going to give, ooh, something new and shiny. So kind of do a mental inventory with yourself. And if you say, well, my phone, the screen is gone, the I can't charge it anymore, and this particular wireless carrier is offering some fantastic deal, then yes, then you go. But if it is, oh, I want something new and shiny because Susan got one and I gotta have one too, and all of those things are going through. I had a bad day at work. I'm gonna buy myself a phone. Stop, stop. That is emotional spending.
Right. Especially because there's, a new iPhone that comes out every year. Right? People feel like they need it. Oh, I need a new one every year. But
I
like, do
know
you?
it, and the thousands of dollars that they have become.
We talked about social media contributing to emotional spending. How do you think it creates more of like an impulse spend? Like if someone sees something, they don't even do a 24-hour rule, they'll just get it. And even with not even necessarily seeing your friends buy something, but there are just like so many sponsored things. Like if I'm on my phone on Google Chrome looking up something, I swear, like I go on Instagram, it pops up right away. That's a
Absolutely.
big trigger, I
I
think.
agree with you 100%, Kate, because I think that even myself, I'll be kind of flipping through Instagram right off the bat, and something will come up, an advertisement will come up that somehow, is something that I'm interested in, and all of a sudden now I am hitting the button. Online shopping and advertising online, is can be very dangerous to an emotional spender because it's bad enough that credit cards sometimes don't make us feel like we are using real money, but it's even worse when I can just say buy now and it's just gone. And the next thing I know, it's going to be delivered to my house in 4 hours. That can, like you said, that 24 hours to think about, do I want it? Do I need it? Is it something that's going to really benefit me? That doesn't happen.
That's true. And then what role does retail therapy culture and the normalization of spending play for emotional spending?
Absolutely. I mean, I remember when I was like in my 20s and my 30s, if I had a bad day or something and I called a friend, they would be like, "Oh, we're going shopping. You're going to feel better because we're going to go shopping. We're going to go to the mall. There's going to be a whole thing. It's going to be great." It normalized the idea that if I had a bad day, my girlfriends would take me shopping and I would spend money. It normalized it. And of course, we have taught our children the same thing. If my daughter comes home and had a particularly bad day at work, I think, "Oh, you know what? I'll take you out. We'll go here or we'll go there." And it doesn't have to be repetitive. It only has to be a few times before it becomes ingrained in your system that I don't feel well, something is wrong, I am sad, I am depressed, I am excited because of something. Let's go shopping.
Let's talk about this. So, how can someone start identifying the emotional triggers behind their spending? Because I also want to touch on it might not be always a bad emotion that's making you spend. It could
No.
be a good emotion. So, and
Yes.
kind of talk about those triggers for both sides of the spectrum.
I think that when you look at emotional spending, no matter what the trigger is, whether it be good or bad, the end result is still the same. So it is about sitting down and really thinking about how you're feeling. I think one of the things that we might not do enough is, again, take kind of that emotional inventory and say, okay, you know what? I really don't. I had a bad day. This is why I want to go shopping. Hold on. But it goes the same for, woo, I'm all hyped up after work because I had a great day. My boss gave me a good compliment, and I'm running out the door because I'm going to buy myself a dress, and I did good today. It's funny because if you look at, say, like a diet plan, they identify all of these emotions that cause you to eat and why using food is not the right thing to do when you have these emotional triggers, and there's all kinds of things that go into that. We've just started scratching the surface when it comes to the spending aspect. There are a lot of people involved in keeping us spending like that. So I think that it's not looked at this. It's not being pushed the same way that, say, maybe a diet plan and food would be.
Because it's almost like if you have a good day and then you come home from work and it's been a good day, you're like, oh, let's just go, like, screw what we have for dinner. Let's just go out
Yep.
and pay, even though I had already bought groceries at the beginning of
Oh,
the
a
week.
100%.
Stuff like that. That kind of stuff, I think people don't even think about as emotional spending, but it really
It
is.
is.
It's just, it works both ends of the spectrum. So
Exactly.
that kind of stuff adds up too. Or, oh, I'm having a bad day, so I'm going to stop and get coffee on the way to work. Things like that. Like little things are also triggers.
Very much so.
So that add up.
Yes.
So what are some healthy habits or alternatives we can turn to instead of spending?
I am a really strong advocate for self-care. My suggestion would be, if you are feeling if you've had a bad day, you're feeling sad, something, you've had a breakup, something is not right. I think that using techniques to kind of relax yourself, get into a different headspace is really important. Things like breathing and yoga and bubble baths and doing things like that before you jump to spending is a good thing, because you may find that by taking that pause and using some self-care and kind of getting back into a better headspace, that it's going to curb the desire for the spending.
And then, but I think people do associate self care with money, like, oh, I'm going to spend, but it does not have to be.
No, it could be taking a walk. It could be, it's about clearing that chaos that is in your brain out. and becoming centered again, and now being able to rationally look at things, because you may not have the money to do it. But if you are in that zone where you don't care because, I got a promotion, I don't care. Well, that promotion money isn't in your bank account yet. And no future spending. I'm not a fan of doing that. Get yourself together, rationalize everything, and it'll put you in a better place.
Spending emotionally is definitely going to kind of make your budget go off the rails. So, how helpful is budgeting when it comes to controlling emotional purchases?
Oh, this is a big one. First of all, I think that there needs to be rules in place for emotional spending. I think it's naive to believe that we will never emotionally spend. It just doesn't happen. I myself did it this weekend. I was upset about something and I found myself in Target spending like a maniac. But the difference being that I have money set aside for those kind of things. If you are an emotional spender, which, like I said, I think the majority of us are, I think one of the first things that you should do is set yourself up with kind of an emotional slush fund.
Yeah, like a buffer.
Exactly. Money that is yours to use when you feel like you've tried everything else, but now you're going out and you're going to spend. And that's fine because you have the money to do it. It is not going to interfere with paying your rent or your groceries or your electric bill because you've budgeted so well that you don't need to dip into those needs kind of things. That's that separation of needs and wants. So that's something that has personally worked for me so that I'm not impacting the household budget. I just have couple $100 sitting on the side that if I'm feeling the pull and I can't get past it.
So just make a line in your budget for that. I think that's a
Absolutely.
good idea. And then what advice would you have for someone who feels guilty or ashamed after emotional purchases?
I would look at what I purchased and say, would I have purchased this now with how I'm feeling? Would I have purchased this right now? And if the answer is, you know what, I probably would have, then forgive yourself. This is not something that, I mean, of course, it depends on how much you spend, but you have hopefully not done anything that is going to truly ruin your budget for the month. Return what you don't need, cancel the appointment. you know for me, it's making an appointment to get my hair done, my nails done, the whole thing. I'm walking out of the salon for $300. Maybe I want to pump the brakes on that, but go back and identify what caused you to spend like that. What was the emotions? What was the pull? And I would suggest just working on utilizing different tools to help you when those feelings come on. Some of the things that we talked about earlier. And forgive yourself.
Can emotional spending be tied to deeper mental health issues? And then if so, when should someone seek that professional help for this?
Okay. Well, there is a difference between emotional spending and compulsive buying. Okay. However, it is not a very far jump from one to the other. Compulsive spending is where you cannot control yourself. You cannot take a beat. You have to do this. The pull is so strong. It falls in line with addiction, which is why I am a strong advocate for mental health counseling. People don't associate money and spending with there being any kind of underlying mental issue. But that is absolutely not true. I think that it should be treated just like any other mental health related addiction issue. And seeing someone to conquer those underlying mental health issues, and the fact that you're not able to make the right choices. You go through all these things and you're still being pulled to it. I think mental health counseling really is what is in the best interest of someone that really is struggling with it.
What options are available for someone who has found themselves in a lot of debt due to their emotional spending?
There are groups that are similar to like an AA kind of thing, a 12-step program for spending. It's a spending addiction. But also, what I think is important is in conjunction with mental health counseling, you should also be working with someone from the financial end of things. Because not only do you have to get your mental house in check, but now you also need to get your financial house in check. So depending on how much you're spending, what damage it has done, what your credit cards look like, you've got a lot of things, a lot of which only compounds the stress and anxiety, which is what drives the desire to spend. It really is kind of vicious. And you've got to keep in mind too that when we look at other addictive mental health issues, we can avoid those things. You can't avoid spending. You need to eat. I mean, it's really hard, which is why I think getting professionals from both sides is so important to help get you out of the situation.
Yeah. Would you recommend maybe even credit counseling Navicore service to somebody if they realize they have maybe multiple credit cards that they've racked up? And
Mhm.
you want to talk about how they can get help through Navicore?
Absolutely. So, first of all, what I love about Navicore is that everyone who comes to us gets a high level of care and compassion from the counselors. Our counselors are completely non judgmental, and you can feel comfortable and confident in talking about the situation that you're in and what caused it without somebody going, "Oh my goodness, you spent that much amount of money on, oh, that's not what we do." And I can assure anyone who calls us that we've heard it or experienced it ourselves because we're humans. So, right there, I think that that's the first portion. Second is the fact that the counselor's going to look at your spending. They're going to look at what your budget looks like currently. And then they will look at the debt. And with that, they will review different options that fit your needs in the best way. They're going to look at your comfort zone. They're going to see what you're emotionally ready for, but they're also going to see what the best solution is to get you out of the financial predicament that you are in. And you can trust that. And that's what I love about Navicore.
Of course, I'll put all the information for Navicore in the description of this podcast, as always, so everyone can get that there if they feel like their spending is out of control and they need help. But Kim, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today. I enjoyed our conversation. I think it's going to be super helpful for the listeners.
Great. Thank you for having me. I really enjoy doing the podcast with you. And I think this is a very important topic. So thank you.
Yes, thank you. Emotional spending does more than impact your budget. It erodes self trust and adds to both financial and mental health stress. Regret often follows those impulse purchases. One helpful strategy is to implement a pause rule. Wait 24 hours before buying anything non essential and ask yourself, Is this a true need or am I reacting to an emotion? Start tracking your moods alongside your purchases to identify patterns. And instead of reaching for your wallet, try mood boosting alternatives like taking a walk, journaling, or talking to someone you trust. If your emotional spending is affecting your mental health, don't hesitate to reach out to a mental health professional. And if you're facing financial challenges as a result of emotional spending, Navicore Solutions is here to help. Our certified counselors offer unbiased advice tailored to your unique financial situation and can help you explore practical solutions like debt management plans to regain control. You'll find Navicore's contact information in the description of this podcast. And with that, we wrap up another episode of Millennial Debt Domination. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast wherever you're listening. And if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please rate and review us there. I'll talk to you next time, Millennials, Gen Z, and everyone else tuning in. Bye.